Good morning. This is Jimmy. I'm back to doing the program on my telephone just for today, maybe. Uh, I've been told by people I have a mixed bag of responses. Some say, well, I like the audio better in the old way with the phone, but I like the picture better now with the camera that's mounted up on on the screen. We've got a plug-in camera up there. And so some say they like the sound better. Some say they like the sound better one way and the picture better the other way, but there's a bunch of each. I'm just going to do one program today, and I'll do it the old way that I did it for years, right here on the telephone. The telephone is convenient, but the telephone has its limitations too. And so, as a matter of fact, one of the biggest complaints is I have to get so close to it for the microphone to pick up everything. So, like, I'm right here in your face. With the other deal, I'm way back, because the computer sits a little farther away and the camera sits on the back edge of the computer on the screen. So, if you like this way better, give me a comment. If you like the external camera better, give me a comment. If you don't like any of it, give me a comment. If you like all of it, give me a comment. I think the gist of the whole thing is give me a comment and I can see what you think, maybe. Thanks for helping me in any event. We're had great success, I believe, last night at John 3:16. Dr. Adrian and Josh and I went to Coney Island, hot wieners, buy them by the sack. And we loved the place. Haven't been there in a while, but we were back again. As you could tell by the pictures, I tried the nachos and paid for them all the way through the night. But they were very, very good. I loved them. And I ought to know better than to eat spicy food like that in the evening. It's just not enough time for it to all settle, I guess. But, things change when we get old. It was a great time at the mission. Our chaplain, Greg, was retiring from the mission, and he's pastoring a church, and so he's not going to be out of the ministry, but he's retired from the day-to-day work of being a campus pastor at a homeless shelter and rescue mission, where you're responsible for serving so many people every day. And also training people how to follow Jesus, training people how to get sober, training people how to get clean, training people who never filled out a job application how, hooking people up with cell phones, because nowadays, that's one thing that people my age don't even think about. But nowadays, everything's done online. You can't walk into someplace and ask for a job. They'll tell you to apply online. And so without a phone, you're dead. If they can't call you and say, come to work today, you're not going to get a job. So one of the big things the mission does is to put people into a situation, and they've gone through the program and they're getting clean, they're sobering up. And the first 30 days is very intensive. And then they try to start getting them out in community and working and getting regular jobs and arranging rides to get to those jobs. One thing they do that I believe is above and beyond the call of duty for most places, but for them, it's just part of the ministry. They make it possible for the residents, the people who are there in the program, not just the overnighters who come and go, because it's a regular homeless shelter too. But if you're in the program, they make a way for you to have a smartphone. That way you can apply for jobs online. And that way they can reply to you by email. That way you've got a phone. If you don't have a phone, you're not going to get hired. You got to have a phone number. And it can't be a phone you're sharing with 20 other guys in a flop house, where you got the one, the one payphone hanging on the wall. I know I'm dating myself here because there are no more payphones except at airports and bus terminals that I've seen anyway. Good morning, Shannon. It's good to see you this morning. And so I'm just always glad to be a part of the John 3:16 mission. Pastor Greg retiring. Yes, the Lone Star State. Last night it was a blood moon state, or at least it was here. I took a little picture of it, but you can't tell what it is. I can explain to people that was the eclipse, but with my phone, there'll be good pictures of it today. It was pretty cool seeing that eclipse last night. We watched it all the way home from Tulsa. By the time we got home, it was as full as it was going to get. It was about 11:20, 11:25 Central Time. But we were able to watch it go from no shadow to full shadow in the lunar eclipse because it was either to the right side of the road or in front of us all the way home, and so we were able to see it. It was really neat. They have a new chaplain, new campus pastor at John 3:16. His name is Jordan, a fine young man. He's done most of his life in street ministry, street work. He's just put in a long time of duty in a mission in the Bronx, New York. And you got to know that there's plenty of bums in the Bronx. That's why they call the Yankees, the Bronx Bombers, they call them dim bums. And I think he's going to do a great job. He's only 42 years old, and campus pastor is hard work. So by the time he's 60 or 65, he'll be ready to go play golf too. I just want to say that he loves the Lord, and we're relieved to know we're still on the schedule. He's not telling us to stay home next month. He wants us to keep coming back like we always do. And they always say how grateful they are to us. Well, we're grateful to them. They're doing a great work day in, day out. We come by one night a month and play a few songs and talk about Jesus and sit and pray with people for however long they want to hang around. But those people there on site, they're doing the real work. We just come in, wave at everybody, play a few songs, and go home. But there are people there actually in the ditches doing the work every day. So, Shanna, Kevin, good morning, Kevin. If you prefer this to the camera that I mount on the computer, the external camera, I'm doing it on the phone today, just to remind people of the difference. I have some people who say, well, the audio's better this way or the video's better this way, but I've got a mixed bag of responses. So if you have a strong preference, let me know. If you don't have a strong preference, it doesn't matter. Probably doesn't matter at all. It only matters to me because, unlike you, I have to look at it. I have to look at it to see if my face is in the frame. So I have to keep looking at it. Anyway, enough housekeeping. Tonight, we go to the Souls Harbor mission. It's not a giant mission like Tulsa, but Joplin is not a giant city like Tulsa. And it's right downtown by the railroad tracks where you need a homeless shelter. I know I've told you this before, but I was visiting my cousins in Houston. They're very worried about me being, in the, quote, inner city, and being around so much crime and deprivation and blah, 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 And they said, we worry about you going down there and always being in those dangerous places. Nothing's ever happened to me because I'm a servant of the Lord. I figure if he can't protect me, I don't have a chance, But another thing that helps is I'm not afraid. I'm one of them. I was a drunk. I understand them. But my cousin said that, it's just, you just go to these horrible places. We worry about you. He says, why can't you go someplace nicer? And I told him, I said, hey, they don't need a homeless shelter in the suburbs because there ain't no homeless people there. If there are homeless people there, they get run out of the neighborhood. Either the neighbors, shun them, or the cops come and run them off to another area of town. You got to get back on your side of the tracks, so to speak. Or they make it illegal for you to sleep on the street. I'd have been in jail several times because at my age, if I sit down on a bench, whether it's at a bus stop or in the park, I'm liable to go to sleep. It was just a couple of weeks ago. We were doing a nursing home visit, and we had some time between visits, appointments, and it was shady outside. It was warm, but not brutally hot. But there was a bench in the shade. And I said, I think I'll just sit here and wait until it's time to go in. A little later, one of the men came out and shook me and said, Jimmy, it's time to go. I'd fallen fast asleep sitting on that bench. I could have been asleep more than 5 or 10 minutes, but I was zonked out, dead to the world. And they said, hey, you got to get up. So, that's me on a park bench. The thing about the homeless shelter is that they don't need a homeless shelter in the suburbs and would never build one in a good part of town because that's not where our customer base is. That's not where our clientele is. They jump off of the trains before they get to the rail yard so that they won't have to go to jail. The trains have to move slower when they get into town. And so on either side of the rail yard, you're going to have homeless shelters and homeless camps. Where people hang out and try to make it one more night before they get run off. Souls Harbor and places like it, they barely make a dent in the need. It's almost like spitting in the ocean. But for the 40, 50, 60 people that they help every day, and by housing and food, and then the other several hundred people that they help every day with clothing, job skills, placement, help with writing resumes, that kind of thing. They do a great work. And Jim Collins and I get to be there tonight. When I tell you that I go these places, I'm proud to go there. It excites me. I love doing the work because I'm not a professional. I'm just a Baptist preacher. I'm not even much of a Baptist anymore, but I'm still a preacher. It's what I do. I'm following the commandment of Jesus to go to the poor, the halt, and the lame who can't repay you. If I do things for people who'll be nice to me, I'm not doing anything. Because I'm going to get paid back in turn. Oh, I ate at their house. They can eat at my house next time. But that's not what this is. We're so happy with the work that rescue missions and homeless shelters do, and proud of that work that we want to be a little part of it. See, all the glory goes to God. But if there's any reward for doing the work, I won't get it. The staff and the people who work on site there every day, they're the ones that'll have their reward in heaven. And we just get to be a little bitty part. Now the guy in the kitchen or the maintenance man or the gal that's teaching the women's class, and they're getting paid on staff there, and they're working every day and laboring for the Lord. Nobody's getting rich, I'm telling you. Their reward is great in heaven. And our reward, we may have a reward in heaven for it, but I doubt it because I'm not sure that Jesus gives rewards for something he commanded you to do. Why do you say that, Jimmy? Well, back in the Gospel according to St. Luke, I heard a guy on the radio say it like that. It's almost like he was talking about a ukulele. St. Luke, or the way that the British pronounce it. I think they have an emphasis on the U too. The Luke. It's almost like Luke. Luke. Jesus is talking to the disciples about service. So he's talking to you and me. Chapter 17 of St. Luke, beginning in verse 7. But which of you, having a servant plowing or feeding cattle, will say unto him by and by, when he is come from the field, go and sit down to meat? If you've ever worked for somebody, that ain't how it happens, is it? And will not rather say unto him, make ready wherewith I may sup, and gird thyself and serve me till I have eaten and drunken, and afterward thou shalt eat and drink, after you get done with your job. Does he thank that servant because he did the things that were commanded him? I trow not. That is the King James Version of saying, I don't think so. So likewise ye, when ye shall have done all those things which are commanded of you, when you have done all those things which are commanded of you, say, we are unprofitable servants. That means we haven't done anything extra. And then he clarifies it with what I just said. We have done that which was our duty to do. If you do your duty, you don't get any brownie points because it's what you're supposed to do. So when we dedicated our ministry to the poor, the halt, and the lame, we weren't doing it for attention or extra points or money because you don't get paid for it. We did it because we feel like we were commanded by Jesus to go into the highways and the hedges and to the poor, the halt, and the lame, to people who cannot possibly help us, so that we can be a small part of the ministries who are helping those people. I know it's not for everybody. I mean, we've taken people out with us before. This is all, I don't want to do this. This is not for me. No, you have to think so much of yourself that you can dismiss yourself, which means you almost have an arrogant humility. Because when you get to be really humble, you're proud of what you're doing. My Methodist friend says, humility's hard because it says, he says, and says, how do you know, that you're humble? Humility is hard because it's hard to be humble. Like if you recognize how humble you are, oh, look at how humble I am. Well, then that's pride. If you call any attention to your humility, that's pride. I am making a little joke here, but you see, you have to have enough pride or enough awareness of what humility is so that when it happens in us, we can recognize it. And when it happens with us, for me, is when we go to you used to call them old folks' homes, the care centers and the nursing centers. When we go to the homes, when we go to the homeless shelters, when we go to the rescue missions, we feel like we're doing a small part of what Jesus commanded us to do already. And we're not seeking any glory except his. And if there's any glory at all on the earth, it must go to the people who have established and carry on those ministries like John 3:16 and Saul's Harbor and some of the other ones we go to, like Memphis Rescue Mission, Peoria, Galesburg, Chicago, the Pacific Garden Mission, love, faith. Uh, the one downtown Dallas, I forget the name of it, is right across the street from the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center. I always thought it was kind of good when they have a fancy Republican gathering at that Kay Bailey Hutchinson Center. If they notice all the stew bums just a block or two away. And I don't even say that with any kind of dissension or discrimination because I was a stew bum. We finished chapter 15 yesterday, and I feel like I've just really given you how long? 10 minutes? 15-minute dissertation on the nature of humility where I sounded pretty prideful over it. But humility's tricky, like my Methodist friend said. If you think you're humbled, you probably ain't. We finished with chapter 15, and now we're in chapter 16. Those of you regulars know that I like to preach a little bit, and I think I just did. Chapter 16, this is the release of the 7 vials or 7 bowls. The last of plagues, the end of the wrath of God upon the face of the earth. Matter of fact, this chapter will end when the last vial is poured out. There'll be a voice that comes from the throne. We must assume that voice possibly belongs to the Ancient of Days himself, God the Father. But the voice is going to come from the throne and say, "It is done." Could be the Son, could be the Lamb standing by the throne that said, "It is done." Because on Calvary, he said, "It is finished." It is done. The 7th trumpet blows at the end of chapter 11, Revelation. In chapter 15, they're announced. And no man can enter into the temple until after these last 7 plagues are carried out. Good morning, Pastor Susie. And now we have the beginning of the vials of wrath of God upon the earth. Literally, it's bowls, but the King James renders it vials, which may be closer to the actual meaning, because these are very special bowls, and they're made out of gold. Remember, this is how much this last bit of wrath means to God, that He has put these plagues into golden bowls or golden vials because of the cost, of the worth of it. And I think that it also speaks to the finality, because it's a little extra touch because this is going to be the end of His wrath upon the earth. There will never be wrath upon the earth again. There'll be the wrath of hell, but it'll be in the lake of fire. He won't pour out His wrath again. It will be the end. It will be, "It is done." The last 7 plagues, the end of the wrath of God. And verse 7 of chapter 15 said, "And one of the 4 beasts," the 4 living creatures that are at the corners of the throne of God, "one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels 7 golden vials." full of the wrath of God, who liveth forever and ever. And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no man was able to enter into the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels was fulfilled. Verse 1 of chapter 16, back to it again. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying to the 7 angels, Go your ways and pour out the vials or bowls of the wrath of God upon the earth. The judgment has begun, the last 7 plagues. We have 7 seals, we have 7 trumpets, now we have 7 vials, and it's the end of it. And they come in a rapid succession toward the end of the last half of the Great Tribulation, because it's going to lead up to the destruction of Babylon and the Battle of Armageddon, which are all going to be happening kind of very close to the same time. And I heard a great voice out of the temple. Remember, nobody can go in there, but a voice comes out. And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, Go your ways and pour out the vials of wrath of God upon the earth. And here's the first vial. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth. You know, there was a first seal, there was a first trumpet. And what was it, chapter 6? See, there's a beginning to the progression. When the Lamb opened the first seal, when Jesus opens the first seal. Revelation 6:1, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, and one of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. That was the beginning of the seal judgments. Then in chapter 8, there was the beginning of the trumpet judgments. There were 7 of those. Yes, I have my old Bible so I can find my way through it. Verse 1 of chapter 8, when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of an hour, half an hour. And during that space, it says, and I saw 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 vials. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer. And there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. The angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Then the first one comes. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. The third part of the trees was burnt up, and all the green grass was burned up. So here we had the first of the seals, we had the first of the trumpets, now we have the first of the vials. And it is going to be a plague. It is going to be a physical plague upon the earth dwellers, specifically on those who have the mark of the beast or the number of his name. I heard a great, great, Susie. You're having your Bible class. Very good, very good. And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the seven angels, go your ways and pour out the vials of wrath of God upon the earth. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth. And there fell, here it is, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. And that is all it says about the sore. Is it a plague? Probably. Is it smallpox? Is it the bubonic plague? Is it COVID 72? I don't know what it is. The Bible doesn't tell us. They're having wars. Could it be nuclear fallout? Could they be dying of radiation poisoning? Maybe not, because it only comes upon those. Look at the qualification. This plague only comes upon the men and women, we must suppose, because the word man here is the same word that we would interpret as mankind or humankind, like it applies to everybody. It's all inclusive. Man in general terms. Like, what is man that thou art mindful of him? Not any particular man. But this plague, this sore, comes only upon on earth dwellers, true, but only upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. If you have his mark, if you have his number, if you have his name, if you worship him, this sore will come upon you. Now let's look at maybe some other supernatural sores, things that God has proclaimed. The first case, when we're going to think of Exodus and the 10 plagues that God rained down upon Egypt. And I think it's in chapter 9 of Exodus. Well, there's going to be a grievous plague. And this is the sixth judgment upon Egypt. And it says in verse 8 of chapter 9, and the Lord said unto Moses and unto Aaron, take to you handsful of ashes of the furnace, and let Moses sprinkle it toward the heaven in the sight of Pharaoh. It shall become small dust in all the land of Egypt, and shall be a boil breaking forth with blains upon men and upon beasts throughout all the land of Egypt. And they took ashes of the furnace and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses sprinkled it up toward heaven, and it became boils breaking forth with blains upon men and upon beasts. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. When it says boils with blains, as they would come up, they would look like big blisters, and very akin to smallpox. Those blisters would burst, and you would have these open eruptions and these terrible sores. And it's what people who survived smallpox, or they were scarred, for the rest of their life from these skin eruptions from this plague. It said that he made a dust. He would take ashes from the furnace. Moses would throw them up into the sky in front of Pharaoh. But then it would fall down upon the people as a dust, and the dust would cause the storms. That could possibly be radioactive fallout. There's going to be wars. I think we all realize by now that at some point somebody will be using nuclear weapons. Too many unstable people have have their hand on the trigger. Too many unreliable people have their hand upon the nuclear trigger. So we must face the irrevocable fact that somebody is going to pull the trigger sooner or later. There's never been a weapon that hadn't been used, and we already know the damage it can do. So we pretend that we'll never use it again because of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, Hiroshima and Nagasaki just proves that we will do it again if we think we can get away with it. It's not the exception proves the rule. The rule was established. We have just refrained from doing it for these 80 years. Don't kid yourself. We're not more civilized now than we were then. We're less civilized. We're in a process of devolution, both intellectually, spiritually, and physically. We're the fattest country on earth. More than 50% of the people are technically obese. I'm one of them. We're not the gold standard, baby. Matter of fact, nobody's the gold standard anymore. We're poor and blind and naked and hungry, and we pretend like everything's okay. Don't kid yourself. Nuclear weapons will be used before this is over. And it is a plausible reason when compared to the plague of Egypt with the boils bursting forth into blains. That very easily could be radiation sickness, radiation poisoning, and radiation burns, all of which you die from. They cause death. And we have to bear in mind that these are the 7 last plagues, the 7 final plagues. But on the other hand, even though nuclear war explains this plague, the sore upon the men which the mark of the beast, and upon them which have worshipped his image. You could argue that this could be caused by nuclear weapons, but how come nuclear fallout would affect this bunch of people, but not these bunch of people over here that are within proximity? God could supernaturally protect them. The people in Goshen, when the children of Israel were trying to get out of Egypt, all the plagues that fell on Egypt, they didn't fall on the land of Goshen. It didn't fall upon the Israelites, only on the Egyptians. When all the cattle died, it was the Egyptian cattle, but no cattle in Goshen died. So God can separate and punish at will. He can call, he can separate, he can, in a real sense, sanctify, which means you just set them aside. But I will also admit it doesn't have to be a nuclear war. It could be done. You could just be. God could just say that we want a plague, a sword, to come upon everybody that worships the beast, and it would be done. I was just offering a physical explanation, an earthly, natural explanation for what could happen. But whether it came from a nuclear fallout or whether it came from unforeseeable volcanic eruptions, because we're going to have volcanoes and earthquakes in diverse places, and the fallout from there may cause severe burns and sores that would cause people to to cause people to die. This could happen in a number of ways. Say if there was enough volcanic activity that it blew a hole in the ozone. I mean, back in the late 1800s, when Krakatoa exploded, it it sent an unmeasurable amount of carbon dioxide into the sky and terrible gases that worked and scientists believe that it made our ozone measurably thinner at that point in the late 1800s. And I think that's possible because a lot of the measurements only go back to the mid to late 1800s. But there are many explanations for this sort. Could be one, could be a combination of all. Another look here, where it says that the sword only fell on those men. But let's take another look at the sword. And I think if we go back to Isaiah, yes, I always go back to Isaiah, don't you? Isaiah is where we always return. Isaiah is where we're introduced to the Savior in all his glory. I have called in many classes, especially when I'm teaching young people, I will call it the gospel according to Isaiah, because he talks so much about the Messiah, about the servant, about the branch, about the one who is to come, the Lord Jesus Christ. Matter of fact, the New Testament writers and the apostles and followers of Jesus, that from the very beginning, they understood who he was because the prophet Isaiah told them who to look for, told them who he would be. And he fulfilled over 300 prophecies made in the Old Testament in his first coming. The mathematical odds of that happening, I understand, are incalculable. Not the odds of one of those things happening, but of all of them happening. He was, he was crucified. He had his part with the wicked. He was crucified between two thieves. They cast lots for his garments. They beat him up so bad that nobody could recognize him. They couldn't even tell that he was a man. That he was a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. All of these things that Isaiah wrote about Jesus in his first coming, every one of them was fulfilled to a T. So no wonder we always go back to Isaiah. In the first chapter of Isaiah, he describes the spiritual version of the sore upon the body that cannot be healed. And those who have worshipped the beast and have the mark of the beast, they represent sin that can be present and is present in any of us at any time. That must be washed clean, must be forgiven. Sin is like a sore. Sin is a disease. We're all born with it, and it has to be cured. It has to be removed like a cancer. And that's what Jesus does. He washes us white as snow. Verse 1, chapter 1 of Isaiah. The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for the Lord has spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backward. Why should ye be stricken any more? Ye revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faint. From the sole of the foot even unto the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. That's what the outside will look like in the first vial, the sore upon all of those earth dwellers who worship the beast. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Your country is desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. Your land, strangers devour it in your presence, and it is desolate, is overthrown by strangers. And the daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city. Except the Lord of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom. We should have been like unto Gomorrah. As I have preached from the beginning, there's always a remnant. That is why Christ saved you. You're a remnant of a sinful nation, of a sinful people. But he saved you. He saved me. We're part of that remnant. The redeemed, the ones who are saved, the ones whom Jesus calls and saves. The ones who follow him. We are the remnant. We are the redeemed out of the earth. And we'll spend all eternity thanking God for it. Did you know that? So if you don't like worship, get used to it. I know a lot of guys that say, I don't like all that music and stuff. I just come in for the preaching. I actually know people like that. A lot of your older people are like that. I say this, man, if you don't want to wave your hands and praise God, what are you going to do for eternity when we're going to be standing before the throne, bowing and screaming and crying and throwing our crowns down at his feet and saying, holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, who were and art and is to come. Only thou art holy. Yeah, get used to worshiping now. Practice now, because you'll be doing it for real, for eternity. The sore upon the man is sin. The man who worships the mark of the beast and worships the image of the beast and has the mark of the beast, they represent the human condition, every person, every sin. Jesus is the cure. You turn to Jesus, you won't have to worry about the sore. You won't have to worry about the sickness. So the first vial is the noisome, grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. Now, why is it noisome? We can see why it's grievous. Why is it noisome? Because they're going to be wailing. They're going to be weeping and wailing. And then they're going to be the gnashing of teeth. That's what it's going to be like in that day. Oh, woe is me. They're going to be going, gloom, despair, and agony on me. Deep, dark depression, excessive misery. Whoa! If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Or maybe it's doom, despair, and agony on me. I can't remember. Your daddy said, "No, I won't give up drinking." Your mama would get on her knees and she'd beg. One night he came home cold sober. The dog didn't know him and bit off his leg. Where, oh, where are you tonight? Why did you leave me here all alone? I searched the world over and thought I found true love. You met another and you was gone. That was our inspirational hymn for the day. You don't have to have this sore. You don't have to be around for this. You can avoid this and anything like it by coming to Jesus today. Make your calling and election sure, as St. Peter said. Paul said, examine yourselves whether you be in the faith. Jesus said, count the cost. It's going to cost you to serve me. Take up your cross daily and follow me. They hated me. They're going to hate you too. Get used to it. Love God. Serve Christ. Comfort the brethren. Love the unlovable like Jesus loved us. But God commendeth his love toward us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. I don't know about you, but I was not worth dying for. I was not worth the Son of God dying for. I'm still not worth the Son of God dying for me, but he did. Thank God he did. Praise God that he did. I'm happy today. I'm grateful. I think that's what brings about joy, a life of gratitude, a life of being thankful for what God has done. Well, that's enough for today. We'll get to the second vow tomorrow. We might be able to do the second vow and the third vow, but I'm in no rush. If Jesus comes today and the rapture happens today, class is dismissed. Most of you will be in heaven with me, and you'll know more than we know now, because we'll have the mind of Christ. We'll see him as he is. We'll be like him. We won't need to look for answers because we'll be with the Lord. He's got all the answers. Just being with him and serving him will be enough. We won't worry about these things anymore. It'll be like somebody else was worried about it, not us. I love you all. Come back tomorrow. Get ready to go to church Sunday.